News just broke today that you have a special team looking into why the FBI opened an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 elections. I wonder if you can share with this committee who's on that team, why you felt a need to form that kind of a team, and what you intend to be the scope of their investigation.
Yeah, as I said in my confirmation hearing, I am going to be reviewing both the genesis and the conduct of intelligence activities directed at the Trump campaign during 2016. A lot of this has already been investigated, and a substantial portion of it has been investigated and is being investigated by the Office of Inspector General at the Department. But one of the things I want to do is pull together all the information from the various investigations that have gone on, including on the Hill and in the Department, and see if there are any remaining questions to be addressed.
And can you share with us why you feel a need to do that?
Well, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during an election, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal. Generation I grew up in, which was the Vietnam War period, people were all concerned about spying on anti-war people and so forth by the government. And there were a lot of rules put in place to make sure that there's an adequate basis before our law enforcement agencies get involved in political surveillance. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't. I guess you could. I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
That was quite a statement from the Attorney General, and I think you're going to hear there probably be some phone calls from the FBI to the Attorney General to try to clarify exactly what he's trying to do. Look, Kate, I think this is a highly political issue. The president today, he called the investigation, the beginning of this investigation, illegal. So far as we know, that it wasn't illegal. The FBI was investigating whether or not there were certain people who were associated with the campaign who were doing things with the Russians, and it was something that the FBI, that's their job to do. And so one of the things that we have to keep an eye on here is whether, as a result of this, there are changes in the way the FBI, what the standard is for the FBI to begin a counterintelligence investigation. That seems to be where the Attorney General is looking at, and if that's the case, that's a huge deal. And right, exactly. And again, I think the political leaders, members of Congress, the president, everybody has to get together and decide, okay, if we want to change the standard, then we also have to understand what the consequences of that might be. Because let me tell you, if something in the future happens and the FBI is blamed for, hey, you missed this, they're going to look back and they're going to say, well, you guys told us that we had to raise the standard to start an investigation. And so a lot of what happened here, Kate, by the way, I think we can talk a little bit more of this later on, but, members of Congress last year exposed the fact that there was a FISA. Those FISAs are not supposed to be ever known publicly. And so that's the result of what has happened here. And now it looks like the Attorney General is calling for a broader look at this. And I think, again, it's going to be a big deal going forward.
And we don't know exactly. I mean, he says he said later on, our colleague Manu Raju, he tweeted about it, he said he has concerns about various aspects of the FBI investigation or how it was launched. He's not being specific, I guess, nor should we really expect him to be, considering what we've been seeing, about which aspects he's talking about. Is it the FISA warrant for surveillance of Carter Page, the Trump campaign advisor that they distanced themselves from, and and there's been a long saga about that. Is it something else? Because when you talk about the origins of what launched the counterintelligence investigation that then led to the Russia investigation, it had to do with George Papadopoulos.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think if you look at what, so far, everything that we know about what the FBI did, including about George Papadopoulos, if you're the FBI, you have to look at that. You have to investigate that. And none of that is supposed to become public if it ends up at nothing. But some of this stuff became public because Republicans in Congress decided that they needed to make public the FISA application on Carter Page. And then that because they believed that that was done nefariously. So far, everything we've seen, it was not. But again, you know, our political leaders have the ability to change the law. If they want to increase the threshold for the FBI to investigate these things, they can do that. What Barr was doing today was sort of feeling around this dark room, and I think he caused himself more problems there in trying to explain this. Later on, he also said there was no panel. He's like, not yet. You know, it's sort of very unclear exactly what he means.
Absolutely. All right, Evan, we got much more to come on this. Stick with me. Let me bring in Chief Political Analyst Gloria Borger on this. Gloria, I want to kind of get your take on what you heard from Barr. It is quite a statement when he says he believes spying on the Trump campaign did occur.
Right. It is a huge statement, and I think that, as he said, he doesn't have evidence, but he does have questions about it. And just compare that with what the president said this morning. The president said that what occurred was illegal and was treasonous. So you have a president of the United States saying, you know, this never should have begun. This was illegal. This was, this was because you had all these angry Democrats, et cetera, et cetera. And the president gave a list of names. You know, he talked about Lisa Page and Mr. Strzok and Mr. McCabe, and he went on and on. And so now you see what the Attorney General is saying, that I have questions about this and I'm going to look into it. The question that I have about this is he listening to the president, who clearly wants this investigated, and Republicans in Congress who clearly want this investigated, or is this something that the Attorney General has looked at a little bit and said, wait a minute, maybe we have to change the way things are done here? And his line is, but the question is whether it was adequately predicated, meaning right. I believe there was spying, but was it adequately predicated? My translation of that is, was everything kosher when they were issuing the FISAs? Right. And I think that may be something he wants to get to the bottom of. He may end up saying, yes, it was completely fine, that they had real reasons to worry about whether spying was going on, and they had an obligation to follow up on it, which would put him in conflict with the President of the United States. That's a great point, Gloria, and it seems like there's going to be kind of a long road to get to that conclusion, if you will. Stick with me, Gloria. Ellie Honig and Jennifer Rogers are here with me as well. So is it fair if and we don't know if what Bill Barr is talking about, that spying did occur on the campaign, if that has to do with the FISA warrant on Carter Page? I mean, there's a universe where spying did occur and it was entirely appropriate. And what he's saying is there's a universe also that the spying did occur and it was not appropriate how it was launched. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's using spying in a way that sounds worse than it is. I think really he means surveillance, right? He means the Carter Page FISAs and the other, of that kind of thing that went on. So, I think he's trying to do two things here, right? On the one hand, he's saying, listen, there were investigations into this. We have the DOJ, Inspector General's report coming down. Congress was looking at this. There are all these different areas where there are pieces of information. I just want to collect all that together and take a look and see if anything more needs to be done. And meanwhile, the president's yelling in my ear that this is treason and it's illegal, and so I have to appease him by doing that. The question is, of course, does he then actually open an investigation?
Jennifer, so review is short of investigation.
Yes.
Do you think, with all the information that he would be gathering, and the fact that the IG is also investigating this, do you think it's appropriate for the Attorney General to be launching a review or an investigation into the origin of this?
I think what he has actually said he is doing to date is fine, which is collecting the information that is being gathered by others and has been gathered by others and taking a look at it to see whether anything is warranted. And the problem is we, of course, don't have all the information that he will have access to, right? Because some of what has been learned is not public. So it's hard to say at this point whether it would be appropriate to open an investigation beyond that. That's what we don't know. I will say that he did say something thing that troubled me, which is after saying, you know, that he really was just looking at other information. He didn't know where it was going to lead. Later, he said he actually didn't have any evidence. He just had concerns. But he did say he thought there was a failure of leadership at the top of the FBI. The FBI is great, blah, 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 but we've seen a failure of leadership here. They're going after Comey. I feel like no matter what is determined here, they're going to go after Comey.
He's saying the opposite in the same hearing. He's saying a lot of conflicting things at the same time.
And that's to appease the president, and that troubles me.
In the middle of, yes, I would say so. On the most basic level, Ellie, why would Barr be launching a review of his own if the Inspector General is doing exactly this at the same time?
It certainly looks political, and I don't like.
Do you think it is? I mean, does this happen?
I do. It's not necessary. You have a very competent, nonpartisan, in fact, Obama-appointed Inspector General who's shown that he's not afraid to make a call. Right? He issued a pretty scathing report about Andrew McCabe, and so why would you then double up on an ongoing investigation? That's contrary to sort of basic law enforcement fundamentals.